My mother stole the $6,500 my dead father left me for college. She spent it on my spoiled stepkids. But years later, she was left broke and abandoned, and I built my life without her. I'm 24 years old, work in marketing at a mid-sized company in the Midwest. And honestly, I need to tell this story because what my mother did to me basically left me without a family during the most important years of my life. When people ask me why I don't talk to my mom, I never know where to start. But I guess I should go to the beginning. When I was 16 and everything started going to hell. My dad died when I was 14, pancreatic cancer. Everything happened super fast, like in 6 months he was gone. My mom, Donna, and I were just the two of us after that. And honestly, I thought that would make us closer. You know, like in the movies where the mother and daughter become best friends after a tragedy. But no, turns out my mom needed to fill that void with something else. Or rather, with someone else. She met Nathan when I was 16. I think it was on a dating app or something. She never gave me the details, and I didn't really care that much at the time. Nathan had 2 kids from a previous intestate marriage, Brittany, who was my age, and Trevor, who was like 2 years younger. From the beginning, something didn't sit right with me about that guy. He had that vibe of, I don't know, like a used car salesman who tells you it's a great deal, but you know you're being scammed. You know what I mean? Things moved ridiculously fast. Nathan and his kids moved into our house like 6 months after they started dating, and my mom and him got married before they hit a year of relationship. I was in my senior year of high school, trying to focus on my college applications, and suddenly my house was filled with strangers. Nathan didn't have a job at that time, or at least not a stable one. He always said he was looking for something better, that he wasn't going to settle for just anything. But basically, he was living off the money my mom earned as a manager at a department store. My dad had left some money from life insurance. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough for us to be comfortable. And he had specifically put $6,500 in a savings account for my college. That was sacred to me. It was literally the only thing I had left from my dad besides some photos and his watch. The thing is, I started noticing the favoritism almost immediately, but at first I ignored it because I thought, well, maybe I'm just being paranoid or jealous or whatever. But no, it was real. And it was super obvious. When Brittany turned 16, like 2 months after Nathan moved in with us, they threw her a huge party. They rented a hall, there was a DJ, elaborate decorations. They gave her a used car, but in good condition, the whole thing. My birthday had been like 3 months before they arrived, and my mom had given me a grocery store cake and dinner at a regular restaurant, which was fine. I'm not complaining about that. But you see the difference? When I turned 17, with them already living in the house, my mom gave me a set of towels. Towels. Brittany had received a car, and I got bath towels from Target. I tried to tell my mom that I felt bad, that it wasn't fair, and she told me I was being dramatic, that the towels were nice, and that anyway, I was almost an adult and didn't need big gifts. But wait, because it gets worse. A few months later, my mom decided that Brittany needed more space to study, because apparently she was going to be a doctor or something according to Nathan, and they converted my room, the room where I had grown up, into a study space for her. They moved me to the guest room, which was basically a closet with a window. I'm not exaggerating. It measured like 6 by 9 feet, barely fit my bed and a small desk. When I protested, Nathan told me I was being selfish, that Brittany needed to focus on her future, that I was going to college soon anyway. And my mom, my own mom, just nodded and told me to be more understanding with my new family. I spent my senior year of high school feeling like a stranger in my own house. Trevor got a new laptop for school, Brittany got new clothes every month, and I was wearing the same jeans from the previous year with patches because they had torn. I was working part-time at a fast food restaurant, saving every penny I could for college, because even though I had that $6,500 from my dad, I knew it wasn't going to be enough for 4 years. My plan was to go to State University, live on campus, work during the summer, the whole thing. I got accepted to 3 universities. I chose one that was like 2 hours away. Far enough to have my own life, but close enough to come back if I needed something. Although honestly, I didn't want to go back to that house anymore. This is where everything explodes. I was 18, had just graduated from high school, and I went to the bank to check my savings account, the one my dad had put in my name with my mom as co-holder until I turned 18. The plan was to transfer everything to my personal account and use it to pay for the first semester of college. I sat down with the bank officer, gave him my information, and when he checked the account, he tells me, "I'm sorry, but this account has a balance of $47. I literally thought there was an error in the system." I told him no, that it should have around $6,500, that my dad had put that money there years ago. The guy checked the transaction history and showed me withdrawal of $1,000 8 months ago, withdrawal of $1,500 6 months ago, withdrawal of $2,000 4 months ago, and so on until the account was almost empty. All the withdrawals were made by my mom. I left that bank feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach. I couldn't breathe properly. My hands were shaking so much I could barely open my car door, that old Civic I had bought with my own money from work. I went straight home, walked in, and found my mom in the kitchen making dinner. Nathan was in the living room watching TV, as always. I asked her, with the calmest voice I could manage, "Where's my college money?" She didn't even look at me. Kept cutting vegetables and said, "What money are you talking about?" I said, "The money Dad put in the savings account for me. The $6,500. Where is it?" There was a horrible silence. Nathan turned off the TV and came to the kitchen. My mom finally looked at me and sighed, as if I was the one being unreasonable, and told me, "Look, Ella, we had to use it. Brittany needed SAT prep classes, and Trevor needed a math tutor, and there were other things, house expenses. You know how things are." I stood there, processing what I had just heard, and all I could say was, "Are you telling me you spent my money, the money my dad left me for college, on your stepchildren?" And she said, "They're your siblings now. We're all one family. We all have to pitch in. Pitch in." That word made me so angry. I had been pitching in, working, taking care of my own expenses, while Brittany and Trevor got everything served on a silver platter. Nathan got into the conversation and said, "Listen, Ella, your mom did what she had to do for the good of the family. You can't be so selfish to only think about yourself." I yelled at him, and I don't mind admitting I yelled that that money was mine, that my dad put it there specifically for me, that it was the only thing I had left from him. Nathan got all macho and told me not to disrespect him in his house, and I said, "This isn't your house. This was my house before you came with your family to rob us." My mom started crying, saying I was being cruel, that I didn't understand how hard it was to support the whole family, that Nathan was doing his best to find work. That night, I went up to my tiny room, packed what I could in 2 suitcases and a backpack, and called my cousin Heather. She was like 28 at the time, lived alone in an apartment half an hour away, and had always been like my big sister. I told her everything, crying so hard I could barely talk, and she told me, "Come here now. You can stay with me as long as you need." I left that same night. My mom tried to stop me, saying I was overreacting, that we could talk about this. But I just said, "You stole the future my dad wanted for me. We have nothing more to talk about." I lived with Heather for 2 years. She didn't charge me rent, just asked me to help with food and utilities expenses, which was super fair. I got 2 jobs, one at a coffee shop in the mornings and another at a clothing store in the afternoons and weekends. I enrolled in the community college in the area, taking online classes and some evening ones when I could. It was hard. I'm not going to lie. There were days I slept like 4 hours because I had to work, study, do homework, the whole thing. But honestly, I felt freer and more at peace than I had in years. Heather became my support system. We went to the gym together, cooked together, watched movies on Sundays. My Uncle Mark, Heather's dad, was also amazing. He helped me get my first job at the coffee shop because he knew the owner. My mom tried to contact me several times during those first months. Text messages, calls. She even showed up at the coffee shop once. I told her I wasn't ready to talk to her, that I needed space. She kept insisting that I was overreacting, that families have disagreements, but that doesn't mean you should cut contact. Nathan sent me a message saying I was breaking my mom's heart and that I should be grateful they had given me a roof for so many years. I blocked his number after that. Fast forward like 2 years. I was 20, had completed my credits at community college, and managed to transfer to the state university I had originally chosen. I had enough savings to cover part of the tuition, took out student loans for the rest, and got a job as an administrative assistant in a campus office that paid decently and let me study during downtime. I moved into a shared apartment with 2 girls who also studied there. It was small, but it was mine. Well, Hours, but you know what I mean. For the first time in years, I felt like what was building something. Like I had control of my life. During this time, I basically didn't hear anything from my mom or Nathan and his kids. Heather would occasionally tell me that my mom asked about me, that she wanted to know how I was, but I asked Heather not to give her details. It wasn't that I wanted to be cruel. I just wasn't ready to have that conversation. And honestly, I didn't know if I ever would be. I was focused on my classes, on my work, on my friends, on building the life I wanted without depending on anyone. I graduated at 23. One semester earlier than normal because I had taken summer classes and a heavy load during regular semesters. I got a job in marketing at a mid-sized company. Nothing spectacular, but with good salary and benefits. I moved into a small but nice studio, decorated it with my stuff, bought secondhand furniture. I restored myself. That whole vibe. I was proud of myself, of what I had achieved completely alone, without help from my mom or Nathan or anyone except Heather and my Uncle Mark. And then, just when I thought my life was finally stable and peaceful, I get a message from my mom. I hadn't blocked her because part of me, I guess, still wanted to keep that door a little bit open, even if I wasn't ready to cross it. The message said something like, "Hi, Ella. I hope you're well. I need to talk to you about something important. Could you call me when you have time?" My first instinct was to ignore it, but Heather told me to at least find out what she wanted, that maybe it was something serious. I don't know. Maybe someone was sick or something. I called her. And guess what? She wasn't sick. Nobody was dying. There was no emergency. What my mom wanted was to ask me for money. Specifically, she wanted me to help pay for Brittany's apartment. Turns out Brittany, who is also 24 now, had decided to move out on her own to an apartment in an expensive area of the city, and Nathan had promised her that he and my mom would pay the rent, which was like $1,500 a month. But of course, Nathan still had no stable job, and my mom couldn't cover it all with her salary plus her own expenses. So they thought, hey, why don't we ask Ella to contribute? After all, we're family, right? She told me she needed me to pay between $1,000 and $1,500 a month for Brittany's apartment. $1,000 to $1,500 a month. For my stepsister, who had always gotten everything handed to her on a silver platter, while I had to work and fight for everything I had. I said, "Are you kidding?" I thought it was a bad joke. She told me, "Ella, I know you have a good job now, and Brittany really needs this apartment for her independence. It would be really nice of you to help your sister." I responded, "Donna, number one, she's not my sister. She's your stepdaughter. Number two, do you remember the $6,500 you stole from me 6 years ago? The $6,500 that was for my college? Because I remember it perfectly. And number three, I'm not giving you a single cent." She started with the same old speech, that I was being selfish, that family helps each other, that she had done so much for me when I was a child. I told her, "You gave me shelter and food, which is what parents are supposed to do. That's not doing something extraordinary that I owe you for forever. And then you stole the money my dad left me to give it to your husband's kids. I don't owe you anything." And I hung up. After that call, I blocked her everywhere. Phone, social media, email, everything. I was shaking with rage. After years of not talking, the first thing she does is ask me for money. Not even a sorry, not even a how have you been, just give me money for Brittany. I thought that would be the end of it, but no. Like a week later, I get a call from an unknown number. I answer because sometimes I get work calls, and it's Nathan. Nathan, who hadn't talked to me in years, who had sent me that horrible message when I left, was now calling me. He starts talking to me, in that condescending tone he always used, saying my mom was very upset with me, that I was being immature, that it was time for me to leave the past behind and act like a responsible family member. I let him talk for like 2 minutes, and then I told him, "Nathan, I'm going to tell you something very clearly. You came into my life and my house when I was 16 years old. You treated your kids like they were gold and me like I was trash. You convinced my mom to steal my college money to pay for things for Brittany and Trevor. Don't ever call me again in your life, and if you do, I'm going to consider it harassment, and I'm going to call the police." And I hung up. Later I found out through Heather, because she still talked to my Uncle Mark, who sometimes saw my mom, that Nathan had given my mom an ultimatum. Either she found a way to pay for Brittany's apartment, or he was going to leave because he wasn't going to live in a house where his daughter couldn't have what she deserved. Poor Brittany, who couldn't get a job or get roommates or, I don't know, live within her means like the rest of us mortals. My mom, in her infinite wisdom, decided to start taking money out of her retirement fund to pay for that apartment. Her own retirement, the money she had been saving for years, to support a 4-year-old adult woman in an apartment she couldn't afford. This continued for like 6 months. My mom emptying her retirement, Nathan living the life without working, basically being supported by my mom, Brittany in her expensive apartment without contributing anything. And then, surprise, surprise, Nathan left anyway. He met another woman, someone younger than my mom, and decided he wanted to start over. He took half of the remaining savings in the joint account he shared with my mom, which included part of the retirement money she had taken out, and he took the car that was in both their names, a Toyota my mom had bought years ago. He basically left my mom with nothing, financially destroyed. After using her for years. Heather told me all this, and I didn't know how to feel. Part of me felt a horrible satisfaction of like, I told you so, because I knew from the beginning that Nathan wasn't a good person, that he was just using my mom. But another part, a part I didn't want to admit, felt sorry for her. She had lost her husband, then her daughter, then her money, and now Nathan too. But I was still very angry. And honestly, I wasn't ready to forgive everything she had done to me. Like 3 weeks after Nathan left, I get an email from my mom. This time I didn't ignore it. I read it. It said, "Ella, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand that. But I need to tell you that you were right about Nathan. About everything. I was wrong about so many things. And I know I hurt you in ways I may never be able to repair. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry." It ended with, "If you ever want to talk, I'll be here. With love, Mom." I left that email unanswered for like a week. I went on with my life, went to work, hung out with friends, everything normal, but that email was there in my mind. Heather told me I should at least consider talking to her. Not necessarily forgive her or re-establish the relationship, but at least hear what she had to say. I told her I would think about it. Finally, like 2 weeks later, I responded. I told her we could meet at a neutral cafe, not at her house or mine, on neutral territory. She accepted immediately. We met on a Saturday afternoon at a Starbucks near where I lived. When I saw her walk in, I was shocked by how much she had aged. She was 52 but looked like 60. You know, like when stress and problems age you fast. She sat across from me, and the first thing she said was, "Thank you for agreeing to see me." She told me everything. How Nathan had been manipulative from the beginning. How he had convinced her that I was difficult and problematic. How he had made her believe his kids needed more because they had had a harder life. The whole thing. She told me she realized now that she had sacrificed her relationship with me for a man who had never really loved her, who had only used her. She told me she understood if I could never forgive her, but that she needed me to know she regretted everything. I just listened to her. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just listened. When she finished, I told her, "Mom, I appreciate you telling me all this. I really do. But I can't tell you I forgive you. Not now. Maybe never. What you did to me, stealing that money Dad left for me, choosing Nathan and his kids over your own daughter, those things marked me. I had to build my life completely alone, without your support, without the money I should have had, and I did it. I'm okay now, but it was incredibly hard, and it shouldn't have been like that." She nodded, crying, and said, I know, and I can never apologize enough." I asked her what she was. "I'm going to do now." She told me Brittany had moved back in with her because she couldn't afford the apartment, that Trevor was living with Nathan and his new girlfriend, that she was working as much as she could to recover financially, but that she had lost most of her retirement. I asked her if she needed help, and she told me, "No, I'm not asking you for that. I just wanted to see you and tell you I'm sorry." And I believed her. For the first time in years, I believed her. That meeting was like 3 months ago. We haven't re-established a close relationship or anything like that. We text occasionally, like once a month. She asks me how I am, and I give her short but polite answers. I saw her one more time like a month ago, another coffee shop meeting, more conversation about her life and mine. I still feel a lot of resentment. I'm still processing everything. And honestly, I don't know if we'll ever be able to have a normal mother-daughter relationship. What I do know is that I'm proud of the life I built. I have my apartment, my job, my friends, my independence. I learned I can depend on myself, that I don't need the approval or support of someone who hurt me so deeply. Heather is still my favorite person in the world. She and my Uncle Mark are my real family. And maybe someday I can forgive my mom. Or maybe not. But that decision is mine, and I'll make it on my own terms. When I'm ready. If I ever am. The craziest thing about all of this is that Brittany hasn't contacted me either. She's never apologized to me for all the years of spoiled and privileged behavior. She's never acknowledged that she basically lived an easy life thanks to money stolen from her stepsister. And you know what? I don't expect her to. She's a product of how Nathan raised her, feeling entitled to everything without working for anything. I found out through my mom that she's working in retail now, living with my mom, and apparently hates every minute of having to be responsible for herself. Part of me feels sorry for her too, because Nathan basically set her up to fail by never teaching her the value of hard work or living within your means. But that's not my problem. Last week, I was having dinner with Heather and she asked me how I felt about the whole situation with my mom. I told her the truth, that I'm not sure. There are days when I think maybe we could rebuild something, some kind of relationship, and there are days when I feel it's too late, that something broke, that can never be fixed. She told me I didn't have to decide anything now, that I could take all the time I needed, and that no matter what I decided, she would be there for me. And that security of having someone who's unconditionally on my side is probably what I value most in my life now. I don't know what's going to happen with my relationship with my mom. I don't know if the resentment will eventually fade or if it'll always be there, like a scar that never completely disappears. What I do know is that I'm okay, that I built a good life despite everything, and that nobody, not my mom or Nathan or anyone, can take that away from me. Sometimes I think about my dad and what he would want for me, and I think he'd be proud of how I handled everything, how I didn't let this destroy me, how I kept moving forward and built something for myself. And at the end of the day, that's enough.